Kyle Brennan stared through the thick window of his prison cell. Outside, he could see the stars and the colorful clouds of a distant nebula. The view was beautiful, but it made him feel more trapped than ever. He had been locked in this alien prison for 3 months now, and every day felt longer than the last. The Viridian prison was unlike anything humans had ever built. It floated in space between 2 dead stars held in place by their gravity. The aliens called it the most secure prison in the galaxy. The walls were made of some strange material that could not be cut or broken. Guards walked the halls day and night. Every cell had cameras and sensors watching everything. No one had ever escaped from this place. Kyle was the only human in the entire prison. Around him were creatures from dozens of different planets. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked like walking insects. They all spoke different languages, but everyone wore a small device that translated their words into something others could understand. He was here because of a mistake. Kyle had been protecting human ships from space pirates when alien military forces showed up. They did not understand what was happening and arrested him. The aliens said he had broken their laws by fighting in restricted space. Kyle tried to explain, but they would not listen. Now he sat in prison while lawyers and diplomats tried to get him released. His cellmate was named Zix. Zix looked like a giant praying mantis with 4 arms and huge eyes that reflected light like mirrors. He had been caught stealing computer data from big corporations. Despite looking scary, Zix was actually friendly. Over the past months, the two had become friends. Zix clicked his mouth parts together, making sounds that the translator turned into words. "You look sad today, human." Kyle sighed and sat down on his bed. It was made of some foam that shaped itself to his body. "I am thinking about my daughter. Her name is Lucy. She turns 8 years old next week. I promised I would be there for her birthday party." Zix's long antennae drooped down in a gesture Kyle had learned meant sympathy. "I understand. I have offspring too. 7 of them. I have not seen them in 2 years." The two sat in silence for a while. Kyle thought about his home on Earth. He thought about his wife Rachel and how strong she was being through all of this. He thought about Lucy's smile and her laugh. He thought about missing another year of her growing up. That night, the prison lights dimmed to simulate darkness. Most of the prisoners went to sleep. Kyle lay on his bed with his eyes closed. He could not stop thinking about Lucy. He imagined her birthday party. He imagined her blowing out the candles on her cake. He imagined her asking where Daddy was. The sadness in his chest grew heavier and heavier. He wanted so badly to be home. He wanted to hug his daughter and tell her he loved her. The feeling became so strong it almost hurt. Kyle clutched his chest and squeezed his eyes shut tighter. Then something strange happened. Kyle felt a weird tingling in his head. It spread down through his body like electricity. For a moment he felt like he was floating, like gravity had stopped working. The feeling scared him, but it also felt somehow right. Then everything went dark and Kyle fell asleep. When Zix woke up the next morning, something was wrong. Kyle's bed was empty. Not just empty, but clean, like no one had slept there at all. Kyle's few personal items were gone. The small photos he kept of his family were not on the shelf. Even the cup he used for water had disappeared. Zix jumped up and looked around the cell. He checked every corner. He looked under both beds. Kyle was simply not there. Zix pressed the emergency button on the wall. Within seconds, guards came running. The guards were just as confused as Zix. They checked the door controls. The door had not been opened during the night. They checked the air vents. The vents were too small for anything bigger than a mouse to fit through. They checked the walls. The special material showed no signs of damage or tunneling. More guards arrived. Then supervisors. Then security chiefs. Soon the entire cell block was locked down. No one could leave their cells. Alarms rang through the prison. Every prisoner started talking at once, wondering what was happening. The prison warden arrived 30 minutes later. His name was Tolvex, and he looked like a dinosaur covered in black scales. He had 3 eyes and stood almost 8 feet tall. Tolvex had run this prison for 15 years. Nothing surprised him anymore. But this was impossible. Tolvex examined every inch of the cell with his own eyes. He brought in special equipment to scan for hidden passages. He brought in experts to check if the walls had been tampered with. Everything came back negative. The cell was exactly as it should be, except Kyle Brennan was gone. The security chief was a woman named Darnix. She belonged to a species that could read minds and feel the emotions of others. She placed her blue hands on the walls and closed her eyes. She reached out with her special senses, trying to feel any trace of what had happened. After several minutes, she opened her eyes and looked at the warden. Her face was pale. "Warden, there is nothing." No fear, no excitement, no planning. Around 3 in the morning, the human's presence just stopped. One moment he was here, feeling sad and lonely. The next moment, nothing, as if he never existed. Tolvex felt a chill run through his body. In 17 years of operation, thousands of prisoners had passed through the Viridian prison. Some of them had amazing powers. Some could turn invisible. Some could change their shape. Some could control metal with their minds. But none of them had ever escaped. The walls and technology of the prison could stop anything, until now. A human, a species that had only joined galactic civilization 100 years ago, had somehow vanished from the most secure prison in known space. How was that possible? Humans did not have special powers. They could not teleport. They could not turn invisible or walk through walls. But if Kyle had not escaped on his own, then what had happened to him? Had someone taken him? Had he been killed? Had he somehow died and his body disappeared? Tolvex made a decision. He activated the prison's emergency beacon. This beacon sent a signal across space that said something terrible had happened. Ships would come. Investigators would come. The people who ran the galactic government would come. And they would all want answers. Answers that Tolvex did not have. News of the disappearance spread through the prison like fire. By lunchtime, every prisoner knew that the human was gone. Some said the human government had secret technology to rescue their people. Others whispered that Kyle had been assassinated by his enemies. The more superstitious prisoners talked about ghosts and demons that could steal people away in the night. But one thing everyone agreed on was this. If a human could vanish from the Viridian prison, then maybe the prison was not as secure as everyone thought. And if the prison was not secure, what did that mean for the safety of the entire galaxy? In his cell, Zik sat alone and worried about his human friend. He hoped Kyle was safe wherever he was. But deep down, Zik had a feeling that something much bigger was happening, something that would change everything. The alarm reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Patricia Hayes was drinking her morning coffee when the message came through on her secure computer. She read it once, then read it again, not believing what she was seeing. Kyle Brennan, one of her best officers, had vanished from an alien prison. Simply disappeared without a trace. Patricia had known Kyle for 10 years. He was a good man, a good soldier, and a good father. When he had been arrested by the alien coalition, Patricia had worked hard to get him released. Now this. She picked up her phone and started making calls. Within 2 hours, she was in a meeting room with a dozen important people. There were generals, politicians, and scientists. Everyone looked worried. On the big screen on the wall, they could see the official report from the Viridian prison. It said Kyle had been in his cell at 3 in the morning. By 6 in the morning, he was gone. No doors had opened. No walls had been broken. No tunnels had been dug. Director Graham Scott spoke first. He ran Earth's intelligence agency and knew secrets that most people never heard about. This is bad. The aliens already do not trust us. They think we are hiding advanced technology. Now one of our people vanishes from their most secure prison. They are going to think we broke him out, did we? Asked a general. Do we have technology that could do this? Director Scott shook his head firmly. No, we have special forces teams, yes. We have advanced ships and weapons, yes. But to extract someone from that prison? We would need months to plan. We would need people on the inside to help. And even then, our success rate would be maybe 10%. What they are describing, a man just vanishing with no trace, that is beyond anything we can do. Patricia looked at the file on her computer screen more carefully. Then she noticed something. 6 months before Kyle was arrested, he had received special medical implants. They were part of a program called Prometheus. The implants were supposed to make soldiers think faster and react quicker in dangerous situations. What about these? Patricia pointed at the screen. Could the implants have something to do with his disappearance? A scientist named Dr. Lisa Park leaned forward to look. I worked on the Prometheus program. Those implants just help the brain work better. They create new connections between brain cells. They do not give people superpowers. They definitely cannot make someone teleport or turn invisible. Are you absolutely sure? Asked Director Scott. Dr. Park nodded. We tested them for 3 years. 30 officers received the implants. All of them are fine. The implants are completely safe and completely understood. They cannot explain this disappearance. But even as she said it, Dr. Park felt a small doubt in her mind. Were they really sure they understood everything about the implants? The human brain was incredibly complicated. Had they missed something? Back at the Viridian prison, Warden Tolvex was dealing with a crisis. Ships from the alien coalition were arriving every few hours. Important officials came to inspect the prison and ask questions. Everyone wanted to know how a human had escaped. The problem was, Tolvex had no answers to give them. The prison's technical team worked day and night studying what had happened. They checked every computer system. They reviewed every camera recording. They tested every lock and every sensor. Everything appeared to be working perfectly. There was just one tiny strange thing. The lead engineer was named Kix. Kix looked like an octopus with 6 tentacles and could change color when thinking hard. Right now, Kix was bright orange, which meant confusion. Warden, I found something strange. At exactly 3:17 in the morning, there was a tiny fluctuation in the quantum field around Kyle's cell. What does that mean? Asked Tolvex. Kix's tentacles moved in complicated patterns as they tried to explain. I am not entirely sure. The fluctuation was so small that the computer almost ignored it. It did not match any known technology, not teleportation, not dimensional travel, not time manipulation. If I had to describe it, I would say that for just a tiny fraction of a second, that piece of space forgot it existed. Tolvex stared at the engineer. That does not make any sense, I know, but that is what the data shows. Security Chief Darnix entered the room. She had been interviewing other prisoners, trying to find any clue about what might have happened. Warden, I have spoken to 53 inmates. None of them saw or heard anything unusual that night. Most were asleep. The ones who were awake noticed nothing strange. What about the human cellmate? Asked Tolvex. Darnix consulted her notes. Zick says Kyle seemed sad that evening. He was thinking about his daughter. They talked for a while, then went to sleep. Zix woke up in the morning and Kyle was gone. That is all he knows. So we have no witnesses, no physical evidence, and no explanation. Tolvex sat down heavily in his chair. In my 15 years running this prison, I have never felt so helpless. This human has made me look like a fool. Perhaps it was not the human's doing, suggested Darnix. Perhaps someone or something took him, but who? And why and how? No one had answers to those questions. On Earth, in a small house in Seattle, Rachel Brennan was trying to keep her daughter calm. News reporters were camped outside their house. Cameras pointed at their windows. Everyone wanted to talk to the family of the man who had vanished from an alien prison. Lucy sat on the couch hugging her stuffed bear. She was only 7 years old, and did not understand why everyone was so interested in her daddy. Mommy, where is Daddy? Is he coming home? Rachel held her daughter close. I do not know, sweetheart, but your daddy is very smart and very strong. If anyone can find their way home, it is him. But inside, Rachel was terrified. Kyle had been in prison, safe if not free. Now he was missing. Was he dead? Had something terrible happened to him? Or had he somehow escaped and was trying to make his way home? She looked at the calendar on the wall. Lucy's birthday was in 4 days. Kyle had promised he would be there. Rachel had told Lucy not to get her hopes up, that Daddy was far away and could not come home yet. But now with Kyle missing, Rachel did not know what to tell her daughter. The phone rang. Rachel answered it quickly, hoping for news. 'Twas Admiral Hayes. Mrs. Brennan, I wanted to call you personally. We are doing everything we can to find out what happened to Kyle. I promise you, we will get answers. Thank you, Admiral. Just please find him. Lucy needs her father. And I need my husband. After the call ended, Rachel went to the window and looked out at the stars. Kyle was somewhere out there. She could feel it. He was alive. He had to be alive. And somewhere in her heart she believed he was trying to come home to them. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within 3 days, every civilized planet had heard about the human who vanished from the Viridian prison. Newspapers, television shows, and internet sites all talked about it. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a threat. Everyone had an opinion. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. This was a big deal. The last emergency meeting had been 16 years ago, when 2 alien species almost went to war. Now representatives from 43 different species gathered at a giant space station called Celestia Prime Ambassador Chen Li represented Earth at the council. She was an old woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been a diplomat for 30 years and had seen many difficult situations. But when she entered the council chamber, she could feel the anger in the air. Many aliens were not happy with humanity. The council chamber was huge and round, like being inside a giant ball. Each species had their own floating pod to sit in. The pods moved in circles, with the oldest species near the center and the newest species near the edge. Earth's pod was on the outside because humans had only joined galactic civilization 100 years ago. High Arbiter Kelthas called the meeting to order. Kelthas was a Valerian, a species that looked like living crystals. They glowed with different colors when they talked. Kelthas had been alive for over 500 years and had seen many things. His voice was calm but serious. We are here to discuss the disappearance of the human prisoner from the Viridian facility. This prison has operated for over 200 years without a single escape. Now a human vanishes without a trace. We need to understand what happened and why. A reptilian alien from the Korthax species stood up in his pod. His scales were covered in old scars. The answer is obvious. The humans have secret technology. They are hiding weapons and tools that break our laws. They rescued their prisoner to show off their power. This is an insult to the entire council, other aliens shouted in agreement. Chen could see many angry faces looking at her pod. She pressed a button to activate her microphone. Earth denies any involvement in Commander Brennan's disappearance. We do not have technology that can break someone out of the Viridian prison. We are just as confused as everyone else about what happened. We want to find the truth just as much as you do. An insect-like Threnix representative clicked his mandibles angrily. Do you think we are stupid? Humans arrive in space and suddenly everything changes. You build ships faster than any species in history. Your weapons improve every year. Your population spreads to dozens of planets. And now this. One of your people disappears from an impossible-to-escape prison. You expect us to believe you had nothing to do with it? More shouting erupted. Some species demanded that Earth open all its military bases for inspection. Others wanted humanity kicked out of the council. A few suggested even more extreme actions like sanctions or blockades. Chen kept her face calm, but inside she was worried. This could turn into a war if things got worse. Earth was strong, but not strong enough to fight the entire galaxy. High Arbiter Kelthas raised one of his crystal arms. The room slowly became quiet. Before we make accusations, we should look at all the facts. The technical analysis from the prison shows a quantum anomaly. This does not match any known technology, not human and not alien. Perhaps we should consider that this is not about technology at all. Perhaps something else happened that none of us understand. Like what? Asked the Korthax representative. I do not know. That is why we need investigation, not accusation. We need science, not fear. But fear was exactly what the galaxy felt. If the Viridian prison was not secure, then what was? If humans had technology that could break the laws of physics, what else could they do? The meeting continued for hours with no real conclusions. Finally, the council agreed to form a special investigation team. They would study what happened and report back in 1 month. Chen left the meeting exhausted. She sent a message back to Earth. The situation was bad, very bad. If they did not find answers soon, there could be serious consequences for humanity. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Lisa Park was working in her laboratory under the city of Geneva. She had not slept in 2 days. She was studying everything about the Prometheus implants, looking for any clue about how they might be connected to Kyle's disappearance. Her team had built a complete computer model of how the implants worked. They simulated every possible interaction with alien technology. They tested theories about quantum effects and brainwaves. Nothing explained how Kyle could have vanished. Dr. Park stared at her computer screen, looking at brain scans of Kyle taken before he left Earth. The implants showed up as tiny bright spots in his brain, creating new pathways between different areas. They helped him think faster and process information better. That was all they were supposed to do. But what if there was something they missed? The human brain had billions of cells working together in ways that science still did not fully understand. What if the implants had unexpected effects that their tests never detected? Dr. Park rubbed her tired eyes. She needed to think differently. She needed help from someone who understood things that seemed impossible. On the planet Culex Prime, a scientist named Dr. Zenthar was also thinking about the mystery. Zenthar was famous in certain circles for studying strange theories about consciousness and reality. Most scientists thought Xenthar's ideas were crazy. But Xenthar did not care what others thought. Xenthar had been studying reports about Kyle's disappearance. The quantum anomaly interested them greatly. It reminded them of some very old theories about how consciousness might interact with reality at a fundamental level. Theories that most people dismissed as impossible. Xenthar worked through complex mathematics for hours. Their 6 tentacles moved across holographic displays, checking calculations and testing ideas. Finally, something clicked. Xenthar thought they might understand what had happened. If Xenthar was right, this was bigger than anyone realized. It was not about technology at all. It was about something fundamental to human nature, something that made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. Xenthar sent a message to Admiral Hayes on Earth. The message was simple. I think I know what happened to your commander, but you are not going to believe me. Back in Seattle, Rachel Brennan was trying to keep life normal for Lucy. They had moved to a hotel to escape the reporters outside their house. Lucy's birthday was tomorrow, and Rachel had bought a cake and some presents. She tried to be cheerful, but it was hard. That night, Lucy could not sleep. She lay in bed in the hotel room, thinking about her daddy. She missed him so much. She wished he could be there for her birthday. She closed her eyes and made a wish as hard as she could. Please come home, Daddy, please. In the other bed, Rachel could not sleep either. She was thinking about Kyle, wondering where he was, hoping he was safe. She touched the wedding ring on her finger and whispered into the darkness. Come home to us. Kyle, whatever it takes, just come home. Neither of them knew that across the galaxy, scientists and politicians were panicking. They did not know that the greatest minds in known space were trying to solve the mystery of Kyle's disappearance. They only knew that they missed him and wanted him back. And somewhere, in a way that no one yet understood, Kyle could feel their love reaching out to him across the stars. 1 week after Kyle disappeared, Dr. Xenthar arrived at a meeting on a neutral space station. Admiral Hayes had invited scientists from both Earth and several alien species. They needed to hear Xenthar's theory, even if it sounded impossible. The meeting room was designed to be comfortable for many different types of aliens. There were chairs for species with legs, floating platforms for species that flew, and water tanks for species that lived underwater. Holographic screens floated in the air, ready to display data. Dr. Lisa Park sat in the front row, curious and skeptical at the same time. She had read Xenthar's preliminary report and thought it was crazy. But she also knew that Xenthar was brilliant, even if their ideas were unconventional. Xenthar moved to the front of the room, their 6 tentacles making graceful motions. Thank you all for coming. I know my theory will sound strange, but please listen to all of it before making judgments. The screens lit up with complex mathematical equations and colorful diagrams. Xenthar began to explain. Everything in the universe is made of quantum particles. These particles exist in many possible states at once until someone observes them. Then they collapse into one definite state. This is basic quantum mechanics that we all learned in school. But what if consciousness itself is the observer? What if our minds are what cause quantum particles to collapse into reality? Most species in the galaxy have consciousness that is tightly connected to their bodies. Your mind and your body are locked together. You cannot separate them. Xenthar paused and changed the screen to show an image of Earth. But humans evolved on a very special planet. Earth exists in a region of space where quantum effects are slightly stronger than average. For millions of years, human brains developed in this environment. This gave human consciousness a unique property. Under the right conditions, human consciousness can temporarily separate from the body and exist in a quantum state. That is ridiculous, shouted a Threnic scientist. Consciousness needs a brain. It needs neurons and chemicals. You cannot have consciousness floating around like a ghost. Xenthar remained calm. Is it ridiculous? Think about what quantum mechanics tells us. Particles can be in 2 places at once. Information can travel instantly across any distance. The universe is far stranger than our common sense tells us. Why is a quantum consciousness impossible? Dr. Park raised her hand. Even if we accept your theory, how does this explain Kyle's disappearance? What triggered this quantum consciousness effect? Xenthar changed the screen again, showing diagrams of the Prometheus implants. 3 factors came together. First, Commander Brennan was under extreme emotional stress. He desperately wanted to return home to his daughter. This created intense mental focus. Second, the Prometheus implants created new connections in his brain. These connections maintained quantum coherence at the neurological level. Normally, quantum effects in the brain collapse almost instantly, but the implants kept them stable for longer. Third, his focused desire to go home created a kind of quantum intention. His consciousness knew exactly where it wanted to be. When all three factors peaked at the same moment, his consciousness decoupled from physical reality. In that quantum state, distance has no meaning. His consciousness simply went home. To Earth. To his family. The room erupted with noise. Scientists shouted questions and objections. Admiral Hayes held up her hand for quiet. Dr. Zenthar, if your theory is correct, where is Commander Brennan now? Is he dead? Did his body disappear forever? Zenthar's tentacles made a pattern that meant uncertainty. Theoretically, when the quantum consciousness reconnects with reality, the body should reconstitute where the consciousness focused. For Commander Brennan, that would be Earth near his home. But this has never happened before. I cannot guarantee that he survived the process. I cannot even guarantee that he fully returned to physical form. So he might be dead? Asked Dr. Park quietly. He might be. Or he might be alive on Earth right now. We need to search for him. The meeting continued for hours. Scientists argued about mathematics and physics. Some believed Zenthar's theory. Others thought it was impossible nonsense. But everyone agreed they needed to search Earth for any sign of Kyle. Admiral Hayes sent orders to military bases across Earth. Search for Commander Kyle Brennan. Check his last known addresses. Monitor for any unusual quantum signatures. Find him if he is there. The search began immediately. Military teams went to Kyle's old apartment in New York. They checked the military base where he had been stationed. They searched parks and restaurants he used to visit. Satellites scanned the entire planet for any quantum anomalies. For 3 days, they found nothing. Some scientists started to think that Kyle was truly gone, lost somewhere in quantum space, neither alive nor dead. Dr. Park worked around the clock, trying to calculate if there was any way to bring him back if he was stuck in quantum form. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, a military satellite detected a small quantum fluctuation in Seattle. The signature matched the type of anomaly seen at the Viridian prison. The location was a residential neighborhood. The location was Kyle's house. A team was sent immediately. They arrived at the house just after dawn. The property was quiet. The reporters who had been camping outside had finally left. The team leader knocked on the door. Rachel opened it, looking tired and worried. "Can I help you?" "Mrs. Brennan, we need to search your property. We detected an unusual reading near here." Rachel looked confused but let them in. The team moved through the house with scanning equipment. Everything seemed normal inside. Then one of them noticed the back door was unlocked. They went into the backyard. The backyard had a big oak tree with a swing hanging from one of its branches. Under the tree, sitting on the ground with his back against the trunk, was a man. It was Kyle Brennan. He was wearing the same prison clothes he had disappeared in. He looked tired but healthy. His eyes were closed and he seemed to be sleeping peacefully. The team leader immediately called Admiral Hayes. "We found him. He is alive. He is at his home in Seattle." Rachel heard the commotion and ran into the backyard. When she saw Kyle, she screamed. She ran to him and shook his shoulder. Kyle, wake up!" Kyle's eyes opened slowly. He looked around confused at first. Then he saw Rachel and his face broke into a huge smile. "Rachel, am I really home?" "Yes. Yes, you are home." She hugged him tightly, crying. "How did you get here? How is this possible?" Kyle hugged her back, also crying. "I do not really know. I just wanted to come home so badly. And then I was here." Lucy came running out of the house in her pajamas. She had heard her mother screaming. When she saw her father, she froze for a moment. Then she ran as fast as she could and jumped into his arms. "Daddy!" "You came home." "You came home for my birthday." Kyle held his daughter close, tears streaming down his face. "I told you I would be here, sweetheart. I promised." The military team stood back watching the reunion. They sent an immediate message to Admiral Hayes. "Commander Brennan is alive and well. He appears to be in good health." Dr. Zenthar's theory was correct. The news spread instantly. Kyle Brennan had returned. He had traveled across the galaxy without a ship. He had escaped the most secure prison in existence, and he had done it all by simply wanting to come home. The galaxy would never be the same again. Kyle was taken to a secure military facility in the mountains of Colorado. He spent 2 wonderful days with Rachel and Lucy first, under protection from reporters and curious aliens. Those 2 days were precious. They talked and laughed and cried together. Lucy had her birthday party and Kyle was there just like he promised. But then it was time for questions. The government needed to understand what had happened. The aliens needed answers. The whole galaxy was watching. Kyle sat in a comfortable chair in a secure room. Across from him were Admiral Hayes, Director Scott, Dr. Park, and Ambassador Chen. On a big screen, Dr. Zenthar and several alien council members watched through a video link. Everyone wanted to hear Kyle's story. Admiral Hayes spoke gently. "Commander Brennan, we are glad you are home and safe. Can you tell us what you remember from the night you disappeared?" Kyle took a deep breath and tried to put the experience into words. "It was the night before Lucy's birthday. I was lying in my cell, thinking about how much I wanted to be there. I thought about her smile, about missing another year of her life. The feeling got stronger and stronger until it almost hurt." He paused, remembering. Then something strange started happening. I felt like I was getting bigger, but not my body. My awareness expanded. I could sense the walls of the cell, the metal structure of the prison, even the empty space outside. But instead of feeling trapped, I realized something. The walls were not really solid. They were just my belief that they were solid. "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Park, leaning forward. Kyle struggled to explain. "It is hard to describe. The walls were real, yes, but they were also just one possible reality. And I realized I did not have to be in that reality. I could choose a different one. So I thought about home, about our backyard, about the oak tree where Lucy plays. And then I was there just like that. You thought about home and appeared there? Not exactly like teleportation. It was more like I had always been in both places and I just stopped being in one and stayed in the other. Does that make sense?" On the screen, Dr. Senthar's tentacles waved excitedly. "Yes, this confirms my theory perfectly. Commander Brennan achieved quantum superposition of consciousness. He existed in multiple possible locations simultaneously, then collapsed into the location he desired most." "Remarkable." Ambassador Chen asked the next question carefully. "Commander, do you think you could do this again? Could you control this ability?" Kyle thought about it. "I honestly do not know. The experience was intense and scary. I am not sure I would want to try it again. What if I got stuck somewhere in between? What if I could not come back? I have a wife and daughter. I cannot risk leaving them forever." Director Scott spoke up. "But the ability exists, and if you can do it, others with the Prometheus implants might be able to as well. We have 30 officers with those implants." The room fell silent as everyone thought about the implications. If humans could learn to control this ability, it would change everything. They could travel instantly anywhere in the universe. They could escape any prison or trap. They could appear and disappear like ghosts. Some of the aliens watching on the screen looked excited. Others looked terrified. One of the council members spoke up. "This changes the balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity now possesses an ability that no other species has. How can we trust that you will not use it for war or conquest?" Admiral Hayes responded firmly. "Earth has no intention of using this ability for aggression. We are just as surprised by this as you are. We propose complete transparency. We will share all our research on the Prometheus implants. We will work with the Galactic Council to understand this phenomenon together." High Arbiter Kelthas appeared on the screen, his crystal form glowing thoughtfully. "This is wise. We must study this together, not fear it. I propose we establish a joint research program. Scientists from many species will work together to understand human consciousness and its quantum properties." After hours of discussion, an agreement was reached. Earth would share all information about the Prometheus program. A research station would be built in the Sol system. Scientists from dozens of species would come to study human consciousness. The goal was understanding, not weaponization. There would be rules, though. No human with Prometheus implants could leave Earth's solar system without special permission and monitoring. The potential for misuse was too great. Research into enhancing this ability would be carefully controlled by both Earth and the Galactic Council. Kyle was also cleared of all charges. The Alien Coalition apologized for his imprisonment. It had been a misunderstanding, and he was free to go home to his family. That evening, Kyle returned to his house in Seattle. Rachel and Lucy were waiting for him. They had dinner together as a family, something they had not been able to do in months. Lucy talked excitedly about school and her friends. Rachel held Kyle's hand under the table, still not quite believing he was really home. After dinner, Kyle walked out to the backyard. He stood under the oak tree where he had appeared 4 days ago. The swing moved gently in the evening breeze. Stars were starting to appear in the darkening sky. Rachel came out and stood beside him. She slipped her hand into his. "Are you really here? Or is this all just some quantum possibility that might change?" Kyle smiled and squeezed her hand. Maybe that is what reality always was, just possibilities that we choose to make real. What matters is that I chose this. I chose you and Lucy, and I will keep choosing you no matter what. Lucy ran out of the house and hugged both her parents. "Can we play on the swing, Daddy?" "Of course, sweetheart." Kyle pushed Lucy on the swing while Rachel watched, smiling. The evening was peaceful and perfect. For the first time in months, Kyle felt completely happy. He was home. He was with his family. That was all that mattered. Far above them, satellites and space stations orbited Earth. On those stations, scientists were already beginning to study the mystery of human consciousness. In council chambers across the galaxy, politicians debated what this discovery meant for the future. In laboratories on distant planets, researchers tried to understand the impossible thing that Kyle had done. But Kyle was not thinking about any of that. He was thinking about Lucy's laughter as she swung higher and higher. He was thinking about Rachel's smile. He was thinking about being exactly where he wanted to be. The galaxy would spend years trying to understand what had happened. They would run experiments and create theories. They would write papers and hold conferences. They would debate whether humans were dangerous or amazing or both. But Kyle had already learned the most important lesson. Home was not just a place on a map. It was not coordinates in space or a planet in the solar system. Home was wherever the people you loved were. And if you wanted to be home badly enough, if you focused every bit of your consciousness on that desire, reality itself would rearrange to make it happen. That was the power that humans had, not technology, not weapons. Just the pure focused power of knowing exactly where they belonged and refusing to accept any other possibility. It was a power that no prison in the galaxy could hold. It was a power that distance and time could not stop. It was the power of love and determination, combined with the strange quantum nature that evolution had given to human consciousness. And as Kyle watched his daughter play under the old oak tree, with his wife beside him and stars appearing overhead, he knew that he would never take this moment for granted again. He had traveled across the galaxy by the power of his will alone, but the greatest journey was not through space. It was the journey home. 3 months after Kyle's return, the Joint Consciousness Research Station was completed. It orbited Earth like a giant wheel, with sections designed for scientists from many different species. Some areas had normal air for humans and similar species. Other areas had different atmospheres for aliens who breathed other gases. Some sections were filled with water for aquatic species. Dr. Lisa Park was appointed as the human director of the station. She worked alongside Dr. Zenthar, who had become famous across the galaxy for solving the mystery of Kyle's disappearance. Together, they led a team of over 200 scientists from 37 different species. Kyle visited the station regularly as a volunteer test subject. He allowed scientists to scan his brain and monitor his thoughts. He tried to meditate and recreate the feeling he had experienced in prison, but the quantum consciousness state did not come easily. It seemed to require specific conditions that were hard to reproduce. One day, Kyle sat in a comfortable chair in one of the testing rooms. Sensors covered his head, measuring his brain activity. Dr. Park watched the readings on her screen while Dr. Zenthar observed with their multiple eyes. "Try to remember how you felt that night," said Dr. Park. "The emotion, the intensity of wanting to be home." Kyle closed his eyes and thought about Lucy's birthday. He remembered the sadness and longing, but it was different now. He was already home. He saw Lucy every day. The desperate need that had driven him across space no longer existed. "I cannot recreate it," he said, opening his eyes. "That night I was trapped and desperate. I needed to be home more than I needed to breathe. Now I am home. The feeling is not the same." Dr. Zenthar's tentacles waved thoughtfully. "This is an important finding. The quantum consciousness effect requires extreme emotional intensity, combined with the Prometheus implants. It cannot be triggered casually or for convenience. This is actually good news. Why is that good? Asked Kyle. Because it means this ability cannot be weaponized easily. You cannot train soldiers to use it on command. It only works when someone desperately needs to be somewhere, when every fiber of their being focuses on that single desire. That makes it much less dangerous as a military tool. This finding helped ease tensions in the Galactic Council. Many alien species had been afraid that humans would create armies of quantum warriors who could appear anywhere instantly. But if the ability only worked under extreme emotional circumstances, it was less of a threat. Still, some questions remained. Dr. Park studied the other 29 officers who had received Prometheus implants. She interviewed them and ran tests. None of them had experienced anything like what Kyle described. But the potential was there, sleeping in their enhanced brains. One of those officers was a woman named Lieutenant Sarah Brooks. She had a young son named Danny who had a serious illness. Danny needed a rare treatment that was only available on Mars. Sarah had applied for emergency leave to be with him during his treatment, but it had been denied due to military requirements. One night, Sarah received a call that Danny's condition had worsened. She needed to be there, but the next transport to Mars would not leave for 2 days. Sarah sat in her quarters, overwhelmed with fear and desperation. She thought about Danny in the hospital, scared and asking for his mother. Then Sarah felt the same strange sensation that Kyle had described. A tingling in her head, a feeling of expansion, a sudden understanding that distance was just an idea, not a barrier. And then she was in the hospital on Mars, standing beside Danny's bed. The nurses were shocked to see her appear out of nowhere. Alarms went off. Security came running, but Sarah did not care. She held her son's hand and told him everything would be okay. And somehow her presence helped. Danny's condition stabilized that night. News of Sarah's quantum jump spread quickly. Now there were 2 humans who had demonstrated this ability. Both times it had happened when someone desperately needed to be with family. The pattern was becoming clear. Dr. Zenthar updated their theory. Human quantum consciousness appears to be triggered by powerful emotional bonds, particularly family connections. This suggests that human consciousness evolved not just with quantum properties, but with deep social and emotional dimensions that interact with those quantum properties. Ambassador Chen presented these findings to the Galactic Council. The council members listened carefully. Some were fascinated, others remained concerned. But most agreed that humanity's unique ability, while unprecedented, was not necessarily dangerous. High Arbiter Kelthus spoke to the council. We have learned something profound about our human friends. They possess an ability that seems to be tied to love and family, rather than aggression or conquest. Perhaps this tells us something important about what kind of species they are. Over the following year, 3 more cases occurred. Each time it was someone with Prometheus implants facing a desperate situation involving loved ones. A father jumped to his daughter's wedding when his ship was delayed. A mother appeared beside her injured child after an accident. A husband materialized next to his dying wife to say goodbye. The scientific community studied each case carefully. They began to understand the conditions required. Prometheus implants provided the quantum coherence. Extreme emotional intensity provided the energy, and deep bonds of love provided the direction. All 3 were necessary. Some aliens tried to replicate the Prometheus implants in their own species. The implants worked to enhance brain function, but none of them triggered the quantum consciousness effect. It seemed that this ability was uniquely human, a gift of evolution that other species simply did not have. Kyle watched these developments with mixed feelings. He was proud that his experience had led to better understanding between humans and aliens, but he also felt the weight of being the first, of having opened this door for others. One evening, he sat with Rachel on their back porch. Lucy was inside doing homework. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Do you ever wish you could do it again? Rachel asked. Jump through space like that? Kyle thought about it. No, I mean, it was amazing in a way. But it was also terrifying. And I do not need to. I am already where I want to be. Rachel leaned her head on his shoulder. I am glad you came home. Even if it was impossible, even if it should not have worked. I am glad you did it. Me too. In the years that followed, humanity's relationship with the galaxy changed. Humans were no longer seen as just another species of newcomers. They were recognized as having something special, a connection between consciousness and reality that made them unique. Some species remained cautious. Others became fascinated. Many wanted to study humans more closely, to understand how their minds worked. Earth became a center of consciousness research, with the research station growing larger every year. But the most important change was not scientific or political. It was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that humans would cross any distance, break any law of physics, and overcome any obstacle to be with the people they loved. And that said more about humanity than any technology or weapon ever could. Kyle's story became legendary. Parents told it to their children. Teachers taught it in schools. Artists created paintings and songs about it. The human who loved his family so much that he willed himself across the galaxy to be with them. And on a small planet called Earth, in a house in Seattle, under an old oak tree, a family lived their lives. They had dinner together every night. They celebrated birthdays and holidays. They faced normal problems and enjoyed normal joys. To the rest of the galaxy, they were part of a great scientific mystery. But to themselves, they were just a family. And that was exactly how they wanted it. Kyle sometimes looked up at the stars and thought about the Viridian prison. He thought about Zix and wondered how his insect friend was doing. He thought about Warden Tolvex and hoped the poor warden had not gotten in too much trouble. But mostly he thought about how lucky he was. Not because he had a special ability, not because he had become famous, but because he had a family that loved him enough to pull him across the universe. That was the real miracle. That was the real power. Love strong enough to reshape reality itself. That was the gift humanity brought to the galaxy. And it was a gift that no technology could replicate and no prison could contain.